Hey guys, welcome back to Screenworthy, brought to you by The Mind Refinery. I'm Kyle Bodanis. So we're going to continue our lead up to Dune by exploring the works of director Denis Villeneuve. This episode, we're talking about his 2013 English language debut, Prisoners. If you like what you hear, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and if you have time, follow The Mind Refinery on social media. Here's the show. Alright guys, here today to talk about Denis Villeneuve's English language debut, Prisoners, are Mind Refinery creatives John Neal.
Hello.
And the man himself, Boyan Nedick.
Hello.
Okay guys, so I figured we switch it up and watch a nice, lighthearted flick, low intensity, but Denis Villeneuve doesn't have those, so we're talking about Prisoners instead. So this flick comes off of his biggest French language film, Incendies, a fantastic film in its own right, one that we will be talking about in our lead up to Dune. Prisoners had a budget of $46 million and was written by a screenwriter, Aaron Guzikowski, who credits producer Mark Wahlberg, sans the Funky Bunch, as helping to get the film off its feet. The script was such a hot commodity. Actors like Christian Bale and filmmakers like Antoine Fuqua and Bryan Singer were attached to do it, although I have no idea what Bryan Singer would have done with this. And then enter Denis Villeneuve, and the rest is history. So I want to kind of start by talking about what a film like this does for Denis Villeneuve at the point of his career, you know, where he is and where he's breaking and what he's trying to do. You know, what does a film like this mean to him? Why don't you start us off, John?
This is the film that really kind of set the tone for how the rest of his career would go up until this point, at least. It's sort of an entryway for, I think, big name actors to want to be associated with him and to want to work with him. And, you know, this is really the film, I think, that sort of would be able to allow him to choose his own projects and have the freedom to kind of weave his way through the industry and pick some really interesting stuff to do, which of course he has done up until this point. So this film, I think, for him is really sort of, even though Incendies was recognized as, you know, something really special by the Academy, I think it was nominated for Best Foreign Film. This is the film that kind of put him more on, I feel like, into the, not necessarily the mainstream, but sort of was driving him in that direction to sort of work with mainstream talent and mainstream filmmakers.
Yeah, I think basically, even, you know, from just seeing what even Denis was saying about what this film meant to him, is that basically it is his entry into studio filmmaking. Technically, he did. No, actually, that's his entry into studio filmmaking, and you know, he talks about how he needed to make Enemy before he made Prisoners. You know, he was nervous about the whole studio thing. He had kind of a fear of it because he's heard he's heard stories of his colleagues who were chewed up by the big studio system. You know, he's not coming into it with, you know, already an experience of that system, and it's weird. You know, maybe we should have watched Enemy 2 as part of this, but Enemy's kind of tied up into the story of this era of Villeneuve, and because they released in the same year. Enemy was his a thing that his last taste of just doing what he wants and just doing like a creative and sort of free and without fear of the studio on your back sort of film, and to him, and he needed to make that. He says he needed to make that before he made Prisoners, and it was basically a film that was dreamt up, you know, a drunken night drinking wine with Jake Gyllenhaal, and they thought of that movie, and then he goes into the studio film, and it does, and he does really well. He does really well. He passes the Hollywood test, which is what, you know, a lot of filmmakers that come, you know, with some good you know, with some heat from a previous film like Incendies or something, and Hollywood's looking at them and they're giving them a chance, and there's a lot of directors who, you know, maybe they barely pass the test, maybe they fail the test, but they certainly don't make a lot of big movies after the fact, and Villeneuve proved otherwise.
I mean, big flick for Denis Villeneuve, you know, the English language feature film debut. He's got a fucking powerhouse cast. He's got Maggie Gyllenhaal's brother. He's got Hugh Jackman, Maria Bello. He's got Roger Deakins locked and loaded. He's got Viola Davis, who you kind of just bring onto a set and let her do her thing, and she just like collects an Academy Award nomination.
Can I just say something about Viola Davis? I haven't super researched everything she's done, but I've seen her in a lot of movies. I don't think she's ever. Is she capable of playing a weak character? Because
she can't do it.
Fucking Terrence Howard just comes off like such a wuss.
He's good. I mean,
she's just a powerhouse. Even this character, like she's an afraid mother, but like she's the one that just has the strength in that family. And
I'm going to tell you right now, if Viola Davis is coming to a barbecue, she's bringing the thunder. That's what she brings. For the potluck, she just comes with the thunder, and she brings it. And this is kind of also a big moment for the Canadian filmmaking community too, and most especially the French-Canadian, cinema community, which continues this really great self-contained cinematic situation. So everything here is primed and ready for success. But with that kind of responsibility comes pressure. There's no excuses if it doesn't work out. He can't say he didn't have the right supporter budget because he, $46 million, Roger Deakins, Viola Davis, Maggie Gyllenhaal's brother, everything, Hugh Jackman, everything is there at your disposal and you know what? It worked out because it's funny because Hollywood puts some people in these mind-boggling situations where they invest in them and they don't always get it right, and this is a situation where they 100% got it completely right. He was scouted right from the beginning as a talent, and he has just been, we talk about it all the time, we jerk this guy off. He's been at this point, I think, probably the best filmmaker this is in working today. This is really where that begins, is its ascension. So let's get into our initial thoughts on the film when we saw it. Like, what did we think about it? Why don't you start us off, Boyan?
It starts off, and first of all, I go into it having completely the wrong impression of what this film was about. I thought somebody basically told me that there's two people stuck in a hole somewhere. I don't know what it was, but or underground or something. Anyways, but I'm going into it and I'm like, kids kidnapped, blah blah blah. It felt like a very common sort of storyline. You know what I mean? Like a procedural, kids missing, it's probably pedophile serial killer sort of thing when I was going into it. But it's just, and this is to his credit that he goes for, he starts off with, and you have this expectation you're going in or in the first few scenes, but then he really like elevates it through a whole mixture of elements, and it's the intensity just keeps climbing, and it's not intensity where it's a thriller and it's just like nonstop and it's intensity that is at a steady pace, and it just keeps climbing and doesn't let up. And then of course the cast basically brings it in every scene. So and I mean, I don't know, I saw a lot of Jake Gyllenhaal. I think it's one of his best performances in this movie, to be honest. And that's it. I mean, I love the intensity. I loved how even I started expecting what was going to happen, and he was taking turns that I didn't see. So he definitely elevates something common, and I think that's pretty amazing on his behalf.
I had seen this probably after I'd seen most of his other work. Like, I had originally, from his work, I saw Sicario was the first film I ever saw by him, and then obviously Arrival, and then Blade Runner, and then I finally got around to seeing Prisoners. So I was kind of sort of in the Villeneuve sphere of knowing what to expect, at least tone-wise, but I didn't expect that it was going to be, quite possibly one of his best films from a craft perspective. His ability to sort of keep the tension rising, as Boyan said, is just, I don't think I've ever experienced a film where it's sort of been at a slow and steady pace like this for 2.5 hours straight, and you're just glued to the seat watching it the whole time. You can't take your eyes off it. It's mesmerizing the way he builds the story, the way he does, and the way that his actors sort of just carry the film's tension all the way through. It's Hugh Jackman's best performance, easily, in my mind, that he's ever done. There's so much symbolism in this film. Like, the first thing that kind of came to mind was the character of I believe it's the guy when Jake Gyllenhaal's character breaks into his house. It's Bob Taylor, the guy that's drawing all those mazes and stuff. And the first thing I thought of, there's this really sort of ominous shot when the kids go out before they get abducted, and there's just that shot of the tree trunk and the house, and it's just sort of like a slow push in on like this big tree outside the house. And we don't actually see the kids get abducted, but we kind of like get it just from that one shot. And the first thing I thought of when I saw the maze was that looks like an inside of a tree trunk. Right. And so there's just so many like visual symbols in this. It's a crazy thriller with so many nuances, and the story takes twists and turns that you don't expect. And it just kind of completely catches you off guard in such a good way. I mean, it's just an incredible film. Like we jerk this guy off for a reason. It's because he just brings it every time.
It's funny because when I was watching it again last night, I was talking to Samantha. She was in and out of sleep in bed while I was watching it. And,
good bedtime movie.
Yeah, she was like, this is an appropriate bedtime viewing. I'm like, yup, Roger Deakins. I'm going to take 36 feet of dolly, point it directly at that tree. Point it directly at that tree, please. Yeah, for a 2.5 hour movie, it's incredibly tight, and the tension doesn't really let up until the very last moment, to be honest with you. And the story is really clever with how it uses those little details and these little Chekhov's guns, like the maze necklace and the whistle. Like the whistle, I'm like, that's coming up, that's happening. And as soon as he kind of saw the whistle, he had the whistle, when he holds it, and I'm like, okay, obviously that's how they're gonna fucking figure it out. But I'm like, that's cool though, because everything's connected. Like even the pop bottle, because like you see the kids like in that one shot, and then there's like the pop bottle next to it, and then she pulls the pop bottle out of the fridge, and I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. And then it was just like really, really well put together in how those little details, like those little aha moments that are cool, even in a film that's so fucking intense. And as everyone's saying, it was so fucking intense, carried by a really great story and a ludicrously talented cast. I feel sometimes the problem with this many good actors in one space is you don't really get to see enough of everyone, but this flick kind of makes space for them all and gives them room to move. Like, you don't want to bring, as I said earlier, Viola Davis out and not get her to do awesome Viola Davis type shit, you know what I mean? But she gets her fucking everyone has a moment, at least a big moment or scene where it really shows off what they're doing and what they can do.
And she doesn't have a ton of screen time, but she uses every second of it.
Exactly. There are no small parts, only small people.
There's no wasted frames in a Denis Villeneuve movie.
Exactly. Zero. And I think it's that economy, because for 2.5 hours you're not like, I want this fucking thing to end. What's funny is this is only his second most intense film, because I think Polytechnique is probably his most intense. At least it's his most chilling. I think the way he uses suspense in this, though, is just out of control. Such a really, really great film. I mean, I don't think it's like high on the replay value, only because it's kind of an intense watch, but the scenes are so incredible, and it's such a good movie. And you feel tired from it, but it's fantastic. And I want to kind of get into the scenes a little bit. Like, what were some of our favorite scenes going into this? Sorry, not going into this. What were some of our favorite scenes?
Go ahead, Boyan.
You go ahead.
Okay, fine. Well, there's a lot. The one that I think jumps out at me, just because of the reaction I had to it, was when Detective Loki goes to the house of Bob Taylor. I think at that point it was like they were playing with us on who was actually going to turn out to be the kidnapper, and he kind of sets Bob Taylor up in a way where you're like, yep, it could totally be this guy. And then he shows up and there's just all these fucking mazes, and you're like, what is going on? There's like porcelain masks in the sink, and then like they go into the room and there's all these cases. And you're like, oh my God. And again, like, you're just waiting for him to open the cases, right? He's just searching through all the rooms. It's just a great scene. The one scene where Loki finally finds Keller Dover's daughter, and he's driving back to the hospital. The cinematography, the car driving in the rain, it almost feels dreamlike. It's just such a incredible visual sequence. Yeah, those are just two to name a few. There's a lot more.
Obviously, yes, I was gonna the Bob Taylor scene, and just him open up those chests and the snakes are there. And it's just, you're like, what the fuck is even this killer? Like,
what's going on?
Of all the movies and with all the serial killers, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't get it.
Can I just interrupt? For a second?
Yeah.
This one, that isn't that the guy who played like the crazy guy from Arkham in fucking
it's David Dashman,
Dark Knight
or something.
I want to get into this when we talk about the performances and stuff, but he's. That guy is fucked, and so is Paul Dano. But we'll talk about that more. But
in a good way.
In a character actor of a particular type sort of way. Yeah, no. So that scene where you're saying, the chest and the snakes. I'm like, where is this going? What is this? Like, are the bodies in there? Is this the end of the movie?
That's what I thought. I thought the bodies were in there. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, totally. I thought that too.
And I think, and this is what it comes down to in this film, that at least plot-wise and story-wise kind of separates it from so many other like serial killer type movies, is Paul Dano and Paul Dano, what's his fucking name? Alex Jones and Bob Taylor are these sort of, they're victims of a serial killer that are a layer of like red herrings in this story. That this is what sets it apart, right? It's not like A to B. Okay, they're looking for the killer. We kind of think this guy's a killer, and then you watch a movie as they finally figure out who the killer is that you as a viewer pretty much already knew the whole time.
Yeah,
this is like two red herrings in between you and finding out what's actually going on. So that obviously really stands out to me. Him, what's his name? Hugh Jackman figuring out where his daughter is, and that scene where he goes into the house again, and what's her name pulls a gun on him, and you kind of, it's kind of all unravels there.
Melissa Leo is the name
Melissa
Leo,
of him getting, like, you know what I mean? She is obviously like, she's giving us a lot of exposition there, just telling us, but we've at this point we already figured out so much of it. And then because going into this, like, he rushes back to that house, and you're thinking, okay, this is a resolution, like it's going to be resolved here, but no, this is it gets even like, where's it going to go now? It feels like we're at the end of this movie, but where's it going to go?
If you don't look at the runtime, you think it's going to end like 3 times.
Yeah,
I think that was amazing. And then the torture, the Hugh Jackman torturing him initially, and that whole thing where he brings in Terrence Howard's character and Viola Davis's character into it. That's also that's just those kind, that like story of sort of scenes, that through line of that torture were intense for me. And I love it.
The torture scenes were crazy. The scene with Dano and Viola Davis, where she comes in and she pulls the bag off his head, and you see his like bloated face. I'm gonna say that's probably the worst Dano has ever looked in any fucking movie.
Wow.
We didn't get to see what he looked like after Daniel Day-Lewis beat him with the bowling pin, though. So we don't know.
That's fucking right. You never see it.
I do have to ask though, at that point, when he's doing that, when he makes the decision to do that, and then all the stuff that he does later, are you, at that point when you were watching it, were you sympathizing with him? And like, where does it stand? Where did it stand with you? Like, in terms of, is this okay? Or do I understand why is he justified in this? Like, regardless of what, finding out, what Alex Jones is later on.
I mean, it was kind of like, at that point, you knew something else was going on. Like, you weren't sure what it was, but you knew there was something not right about this. Something wasn't clicking.
The whole point's the empathy, right? Like you like you can say that's wrong all you want, and like that is like I think it's objectively wrong because I kind of knew it wasn't him because that would be way too obvious. But like as a father whose child has gone missing, and you have like some glimmer of hope to find them or like figure out what is going on, you're gonna like. No one who has never not been in that situation can really say what is gonna, how you would feel. So I think that's the thing where it's like, is it the right thing to do? No, but can you see yourself doing that when it's your child's life on the line? Probably.
Yeah, like it's kind of well, that's the question, right? That's the question that's posed there. It's like you can at least fully understand where Dover's coming from, even if you don't agree with him, right? So the character's motivations are you're just locked into everything that's going on. But
and I think that scene ties into what the aunt tells him at the end, right? Of this is their war against God, and they this is some like they did this to basically create people like him. Like that's one of the things, right? To create a demon by destroying him, by pushing him over the edge in this way, by taking his child and all that.
Yeah, and I think that Viola Davis scene, is kind of exemplary of that, because I feel that when, they arrive at Hugh Jackman's door, and Hugh Jackman's like, "You told her?" And he's like, "Yeah." And you kind of get the feeling that she's going to intervene and try to make it better. But then she, like, almost when she gets down and tries to reason with him and, takes off his handcuffs and shit like that, that really stuck in my head. But then at the end, she's like, "I'm not going to save him, but I'm also not going to assist Hugh Jackman," and kind of just like washes her hands on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I think there's obvious like religious allusions to that. I thought that scene was really good. That's Viola Davis's moment. She's like fucking perfect in that. And the scene at the end with Melissa Leo and Hugh Jackman, where he goes to confront her and the whole thing gets turned on its head. Melissa Leo is like consistently throwing fastballs whenever she's working. And like this was kind of her moment where it was very like subdued, and it's just pretty crazy. That scene, I really thought that one stuck with me. And then the interrogation, we know where he's, what's the name, Bob
Taylor.
Yeah, so he's when Loki is interrogating Bob Taylor, and he like kills himself. And then I mean, up until that point, Jake Gyllenhaal's character he's pretty steadfast and not removed from it, but he maintains a professional distance to kind of like deal with it on his end.
And you also have confidence in him, because even though things are not going well, he's been pretty much right about everything, or he's been doing things the right way.
Yes, and this is the first time you really see a lack of confidence in himself there, because he's like visibly shaken when he kills himself, and like he's like, what the fuck? He's like almost crying, and he's like, what did I just do? And this wasn't it. And it was just a really crazy fucking moment.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal, by the way, his character in this, he quits being a detective and he becomes the Nightcrawler. I feel like there's an evolution between this character, because he's also kind of a detective in Nightcrawler, but he's also fucked up.
Yeah, but he's also, and remember fucking Zodiac? He's fucking just like career shifting all these crazy situations.
Yeah, so
it kind of goes from being a cartoonist to a police detective to an author, all in the same film. Yeah,
Brokeback is the only one that kind of doesn't fit that the evolution between those films.
That's another good like Jake Gyllenhaal.
He had such a good string. I was just looking at his IMDb. He had a really good string of movies.
Like he's been in good stuff. I feel maybe
Jarhead.
he does. I feel like maybe he doesn't get enough credit? But
he's
maybe
good. He's good. Like when he's good, he's good. Like that scene when he goes into Bob Taylor's house at the door and his complexion just totally shifts from like, but you bought children's clothes, right? And then all of a sudden his
expression
goes like,
let's dovetail this into the performances, because we're on the Jake Gyllenhaal right now, so yeah.
But anyway, but like, so like how his expression just changes completely from sort of laughing and joking with him to just, really straight face. Well, do you have children?
Is this Jake Gyllenhaal's best performance, and how does it stack up against Prince of Persia?
Has nothing on
Look,
Prince of
you
Persia.
can't fault an actor for doing a big budget studio movie. He's making bank on that. Who gives a shit about? Like, it's that movie was not going to be good no matter who you put in it.
But my only issue with that is that he already has bank, and it's the Prince of Persia. You know what I mean? If I'm fucking Tom Cruise and they're like, "Do you want to play Martin Luther King?" I'm like, I'm not going to like have some fucking sense.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was in Tropic Thunder.
That's like the one example you can't.
That's
use.
the only example that gets a pass on that ever.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. It is when he makes bad choices for what movies he takes, he tends to do bad in them. But or when his agent does a bad job, I don't know which is to blame. But he did really well on this. But I still think Nightcrawler is probably my favorite performance of his, because he can do the intense, like, this is more of an intense, serious, it's not that great a range of things. I mean, there's a depth and an intensity to his performance, but it's not a great range of things. Whereas Nightcrawler, it's got depth and intensity, but it's got madness. It's so much to it, to this broken character that I think he does. That would be his standout performance for me, even though I can't watch Nightcrawler again. Like, it's just a one and done, because it was insane. So yeah, no, I think he was this is one of his best ones. And by the way, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, he should be the next Joker. I don't know if he should, like, what's his fucking Leto name is, he should be Joker.
Jared Leto, whatever his fucking name is.
Fucking
that's best movie podcast ever.
Cult leader, fuckface. I don't give a fuck about him. No, I think Jake Gyllenhaal has what it takes to be one of the greatest Jokers of all time. But that's just an aside.
I think he's gonna be hard pressed to go at Hugh Jackman. People try to be like Jared Leto. Fucking, like, is this a quintessential Joker? It's like, no, it's not.
No.
It's shit. Anyways, Nightcrawler, he was great in Nightcrawler. I thought he was really, he's really good into Zodiac. I love that.
Yeah, he's really good in Zodiac.
Like, I fucking love Zodiac, and like that's a pretty not intense movie. It's a longer movie, but I can watch that. I feel like I can rewatch that one more than Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler, I kind of like a couple times here and there, but I do love fucking Zodiac. Also, I got like I'm a Fincher stan for sure.
Oh yeah.
Also Donnie Darko. He like young but fucking so good in Donnie Darko. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Absolutely.
He's got a lot of range, and he's got interesting movies as well. Like, you can't. That's the one thing that you can't say about him, is that he hasn't done interesting work.
I think he doesn't get credit for the range too. He doesn't get credit. Like, take like Zodiac, his character is completely different than, let's say, for example, Detective Loki, who's kind of also, they're both detecting stuff, right? But they're completely different. They could not be more different. Anyway, he's good. Whose character wins in a fight? Hugh Jackman in this movie or Logan?
Oh, Logan.
He's pretty intense. This guy's pretty. Fucking Logan wake up in a room. He just
Are we
can't
talking
get out
like
of.
Logan in Berserker mode at the end of Logan?
Yeah, movie? But fucking Logan.
Logan.
Yeah. Fucking Hugh Jackman's pretty intense in this. I fucking really, really liked it. I think this is. I can't. I'm opening up the conversation for what the fuck is a better performance, Hugh Jackman performance of this. The only one that comes close for me is Logan in Logan.
Yeah, I like, and I love Logan. I can't talk enough good about that movie. It's easily the best. It's one of the best superhero movies ever. Like, next to The Dark Knight, I'd probably say Logan. But honestly, this is his best work, 100%.
I'd have to think about it, but it's definitely a very, very strong performance in this.
He's at such an intense level the whole time, but like great actors, it doesn't just manifest itself. And screaming and all that shit, like, that's there, but it's really fucking well shaped. Like the moments where he's like rationalizing positivity with his son, and it becomes like these quiet moments, and like the scene again with Melissa Leo, like, are just like, they're fucking stark. Like, they're really, really, really intense scenes, and I think he does such a good job with it, and he's another one with range too.
He's also the kind of guy that, that has sort of a real world quality to him. Like, he kind of does feel like the everyday neighbor next door type, even though he's fucking Wolverine. He's got that quality just as a presence in this movie, and I think that amplifies the intensity of his performance, because you could totally see it. You could just totally picture it. So
yeah, he's got a good run of films too, and I like that. I like that he's stuck with Wolverine too, and like really kind of championed it, kind of like what Ryan Reynolds did with Deadpool.
And
just
yeah.
Even consider where that began. Wow.
Yeah.
I also,
think, sorry, I was gonna say, I think Wolverine's like of the super. I mean, I know it's not Marvel, whatever, but it's of the superhero. Like, which other hero ever has an actor go from like play a whole arc throughout this character's story? I mean, Logan is the end of a very natural ending. I mean, obviously I don't know what happens in the comics, but it's a very natural ending in terms of all the movies we've seen Wolverine in. And he, that's where he ends his like contract of playing Wolverine. Who knows if that's going to stay, but it was really good. It was really good that it ended that way.
I don't think you should touch that one. I think that's the good conclusion for it. That is the natural conclusion for it. And also I would say that it's not part of the MCU, and I think that if you might notice, the favorite comic book movies we're talking about aren't part of the MCU.
No.
So I think what it did was it gave him range. And like this is another thing too. Like I think he does better when he's working with directors who want to go down rabbit holes and explore all this stuff.
Yeah, well, like James Mangold did with Logan, and like Villeneuve did in this. Absolutely. I also like, just to quickly wrap up on Hugh Jackman for me, that he was able to choose a last film for Wolverine, like Logan, by the way, and that's what he chose to end it on, and that for me is the true ending to that era of X-Men. Like fuck, what was the other one? Apocalypse, and
it was terrible.
What was the last one they did with
Dark Phoenix?
Yeah,
Days of Future Past or some shit. I don't know.
Days of Future Past was before Logan.
Days of Future Past was really
really
good. It was it was the Phoenix one. We're never going to see a good version of that.
No.
They're never going to do that right. Let's move on to as we said, the Thunderbringer herself, Viola Davis. Fantastic. She's absolutely good in this. She's like you just sign her free agent, bring her in. She's getting 35 goals a year. She's
give her
doing
a quote,
good.
Move on.
Yeah, give her like she'll never not be good.
She's an assassin a master assassin for hire, you know what I mean? Like you just need to bring somebody in and they are going to do it no matter what it is, and they're going to kill it.
Yeah, she's Mariano Rivera. She just closes this shit. She doesn't give a fuck. And she works really well opposite of Terrence Howard as well in this, because Terrence Howard is like, it's funny because like if you look at the four parents and just like they represent different parts of like what the reaction to this would be. Like Hugh Jackman is in this like full revenge mode. Maria Bello's character, who she's fucking fantastic. She's good in everything as well. Her character is like losing a little touch with reality, and like, but then also, noticing things that then people thinking she's crazy. And then Terrence Howard is taking a little bit more of a not knowing what to do with it.
I also feel like he's more resigned and like just accepting it in a bad way, in a way that I actually don't like. He's not fighting things, and he's just kind of a follower. Is what he
he represent, and he does it really well. Like that's the character, and I think this is probably one of the best Terrence Howard performances. I think you're looking at this, or like maybe like Hustle and Flow, and then Viola Davis kind of is a little bit more of a methodical embrace of the situation, and I love how they all interact with each other and kind of work with each other. It really turned out fucking great, to be honest with you.
The other thing I really like about the dynamic between the two families as it pertains to the parents is how it's like the gender roles are kind of reversed in the way that they respond to the torturing of Paul Dano's character, where it's Hugh Jackman who is the one that is basically all for this, and his wife, played by Maria Bello, is sort of out of it, or is sort of not involved with it, and then it's Viola Davis who is the one that says, no, I'm not going to stop him, and then Terrence Howard's character is the one that wants to stop him. So it's kind of reversed, how sort of Viola Davis is sort of the stronger one, mentally in that position, and Hugh Jackman is, and Terrence Howard isn't.
They definitely
So-
subvert the stereotypical reactions to
Yeah.
these
Yes.
things, which is what I
and
like.
it's also kind of reflective of like you as the audience, as a viewer, like kind of reasoning Hugh Jackman's torture. You're like, I understand. I don't know if I'd do it, but I understand where he's coming from. It's that sort of like it's fucked up, but Jesus Christ, it's if anyone's ever had reasoning, it's Hugh Jackman and what's happened to him and his daughter.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk about Paul Dano, Captain Worst Life himself in this movie.
when is he not?
I'm trying to
Every
think.
movie,
Yeah, what
he's
movies
Captain
isn't
Worst
he?
Life.
Girl Next Door. He's a fucking tripod.
He's a tripod. He's definitely like, okay, Paul. When will you do this movie? We're only going to be seeing your eye in a little bit of it. a good 20-minute stretch. We're going to be just seeing your eye because you're going to be beaten, and we're going to have to do a full face bloat on you for makeup because they're going to beat you, and then it's going to be fucked. And
On the other hand, here's your script. It's one page.
Yeah.
Here's your dialogue. One page.
Fucking like it's physical. Like he's good.
Oh yeah.
He's good, and he's basically. I mean, I don't. He's one of those. Just I see him as one of those character actors, who's just you bring him in for a certain type of person, for a certain type of role, and he's gonna do really well. But you kind of just feel bad for him because I feel like for me, he's always typecast as some kind of creepy, fucked up, inbred looking, mother, like he's some Appalachian, like 10 generations of incest looking guy to me. Like I just can't, and you know what I mean, he does really well with these roles, but there's just sometimes these character actors who get put into these roles, you just kind of feel bad for them, like, maybe maybe he's capable of more. But he's done a range of things where he's not that character, but for me that's kind of where he sits.
But it's such a great character. He's such a great character actor because, like, he was in 12 Years a Slave. He was in. He does the two roles in Paul Thomas in. In There Will Be Blood. So he gets beaten with a fucking bowling pin. He's the Riddler.
He's going to be the Riddler. Yeah.
And he was in fucking. I don't know if you guys saw Escape at Dannemora. He was in that.
Yeah.
I mean, he awarded for a fucking Emmy. Like he throws fastballs too. He was in Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah.
Like he's really, really, really like quite good.
The thing about this film too is I've seen this movie 3 times now. The second watch, after you sort of know everything and you know that he is like a prisoner himself, like he's been kidnapped for like 26 years or something like that. It really kind of sinks in just how good it is. Knowing everything in hindsight and just, knowing what's going to happen and just paying attention to his performance and how he's handling it. It's like he knocks it out of the park. It's really, really good.
Okay, guys, I'm going to start a timer and 2 minutes to jerk off to Roger Deakins starting now. Timer's running. Use your time wisely.
You go first, John.
Oh my God! So the only thing I will say is the one thing I love about Roger Deakins is that he doesn't have to go out of his way to have a movie look more than it needs to be, and everything that he shoots just complements everything so well. We've said everything there is to say about Roger Deakins, but I just love how even if he's doing a
1
movie,
minute 30 seconds,
even if he's doing a movie like Blade Runner 2049, and then he's doing a movie like Prisoners, which could not be more different, everything just works so well in a Roger Deakins movie, and nothing is out of place.
You're burning through fucking time, Brian.
No, honestly, we've said a lot of things, and this isn't, Deakins does a lot of you'll basically, you can, there's a lot to be amazed and awed at in things like Blade Runner and whatnot, but this is the prime thing about Roger Deakins is he doesn't put himself and his work above the story, above the director, above the cast. He's there to he's the salt, he's the salt in the meal. He's there to enhance everything, but not never to be the primary thing. And obviously, that's what every good
30
DP should
seconds.
ever do. I will say that stylistically, he does Gone Girl a year later. I feel like there's a lot of when I was watching it, it reminded me a lot of his Gone Girl style. There's a little bit more grunge and rain and whatnot in this.
10 seconds.
But very similar in terms of that style.
The shot on the river where it's the drone shot going over the river, revealing all the fucking search party, I fucking loved it. That's all I'm saying. Okay, we're out of time. We're out of time.
There's an actual alarm.
Yeah, of course.
Fucking guy.
We have to. We could go on all day.
That's why there's only... No, don't. People need to know how to, because we can't just jerk off to fucking Roger Deakins all day. 2 minutes. 2 minutes is, we've said enough. We got to get out of our system. What did this film do for Villeneuve's career outlook?
Oh man, everything. He did everything. I mean, as far as like his range and ability with this, there's so many layers to it. Like the story aside, the story is just one thing, but like I said, there's so many other interesting things that are in this film. Like I was talking about the contrasting in the family dynamics earlier, how the symbolism of the maze looks like the inside of that, like a tree trunk to me, and there's a lot of stuff with trees in this movie, and I sort of feel like that wasn't unintentional at all, having seen it. The way that he brings the whistle back into the story in such an interesting, creative way at the end, the way that all these sort of plot points are able to link up, like the dead guy in the priest's basement, and the photo that he sees of the maze around his neck. Just the way everything sort of lines up in this movie, it really shows his range as a storyteller, his ability to craft a story. But it's such an intricate thing that he did with this, and all those little points. Like we could dissect the shit out of this movie, and I'm sure a lot of YouTubers have already done that, just as far as the symbolism and the way that he ties everything together visually and narratively. Yeah, he this is the film that propelled him ultimately to Dune.
Can I get a 28-minute video about the symbolism of the whistle?
Nerd writers making a video about it right now. Yeah, no, it's similar to what I said before. I think this is he has a story that in a different director's hands could have just been a very misuse of all the talent, because in a lesser director's it could have just been a very common sort of procedural story. And obviously a lot of these elements in the script, but he manages a way to elevate this to the next level. And he utilizes the cast wonderfully, which, again, if you're going in and making your first big studio film, oh man, that cast could be very intimidating itself. And part of that, is he's already worked with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's worked with other actors, and he's going into it with some confidence. But and this also he does really well, and this establishes his ability to just bring sort of these stories to a higher level, I think, and obviously while being like an intense filmmaker, and his use of violence is I think particularly there's a Villeneuve style of violence that not a lot of other directors do. And even though there wasn't the violence in here, it was macabre and torture. But you see elements of this violence in his other movies. You see elements of it in Sicario, which is, I think, even another 10 levels above. And I think it really establishes that he can handle a studio movie, and that he can make it into something auteur-like. Even though I've read that he doesn't see things as auteur versus other directors versus studio directors or something.
I think that's a good attitude to have.
Yeah.
I want to know what the fuck, as I mentioned this before, Bryan Singer would have done to this movie. Like, all of a sudden, okay, so like Paul
One can
Dano...
only imagine.
Paul Dano gets the shit beat out of him, and then like he's walking out of the house, and then all of a sudden he starts walking upright, and he's just fucking like normal, just gets in a car and you never see him again.
Yeah.
They never find out where the fucking kids are. This set the bar for his English works. Everything that kind of comes after it has been on this level of quality or more. So, and if I'm a studio exec looking for someone to take hold of important films that actually look to work with a mid-range budget and now a large budget, Denis Villeneuve kind of ticks all the boxes, can work with high-profile actors, can form collaborative relationships with some of the heavy hitters like Roger Deakins and such. And it's so key, especially in the studio system, because you have to play ball, but you have to be able to manage all of it. And it takes like a certain temperament and a certain savvy in order to deal with that. And I think he's showing he's doing it from right from the get-go. And he's still making films with mid-range budgets, which is a rarity. I actually can't believe Netflix hasn't tried to scoop him up, to be honest with you. According to, at least to research, I don't think they have. Of course, he's making big science fiction movies right now, but I'm sure he'll get back to a place where he can really kind of get more into this kind of sensibility, because I feel like Dune is probably the summit of where he's going to be from a budget and a size standpoint. Like it's Blade Runner, Dune, and I think the next one you'll see is probably more mid-range from him, other than like the Dune movies themselves.
He's also doing a Dune series after, apparently, or at least a pilot for it, is from what I'm seeing on his IMDb.
That's interesting.
I will say, from what I've seen about him, is that every filmmaker has here's a movie that I watched when I was young that gave me this idea of planted this bug of me of how did they do this? I want to do this. I want to be a director, or I want to be a filmmaker, or whatever. And for him, it comes with it's 2001: Space Odyssey. It comes with Encounters of the Third Kind. So his sort of creation as a filmmaker comes from sci-fi, which is really interesting. I think it's better that he starts off making, intense human non-sci-fi stories, because that's the groundwork that you need to make any kind of sci-fi ever good. Is that core needs to be good. And I really hope that Dune isn't some kind of ending to his sci-fi. I really think it should just be his ascension to it. And something I also read is that one of his biggest sort of influences when he was young was reading comics, French comics. Like he read Mobius, and he read Alejandro Jodorowsky's work, which for me is like, oh my god, he's making Dune. He's making Dune, but he grew up on Alejandro Jodorowsky, and this is the greatest possible filmmaker that can make this. So
do you know who's hoping he gets out of science fiction? Is Chris fucking Nolan.
Well,
because
him and Chris Nolan love each other. They're huge fans of each other. He
didn't like Tenet. Dennis Villeneuve didn't like Tenet.
No, that's
how
fine.
are you gonna tell
that's
him?
Fine. I'm just saying, as filmmakers, they are fans of each other. That is.
Oh well, fucking. I hope. I'm gonna tell you right now, from an audience perspective, this is what I see. So you're in the fucking Warner's lot. COVID's it's subsided. Chris Nolan sits down. He's got a paper bag. It's time for lunch. He sits down. He opens the bag, and the lunch is gone because Denis Villeneuve fucking ate it. Right? Denis Villeneuve ate his fucking lunch, and that's it. And I'm saying it.
It's true.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm not done with Nolan, but Denis Villeneuve for me is
Nolan
the guy.
Nolan just does too much high concept stuff without that core of human stories, right? And that's where Villeneuve is a complete director and storyteller. Is that no matter what he does, he can make you care about those characters, and he can make you. And they can drive the story through them and what happens. And, you know what I mean? And Nolan is just all about these huge concept worlds, and the characters are secondary, and
he's got to get back on track because I want to see these two sparring, not fucking not in a combative personality way, but it's like when there's a generation of really good filmmakers all working together, new Hollywood style. You know what I mean? Like you're like Steven Spielberg and like those guys are all, it's like one puts out a movie, the other puts out a movie, and there's like a one-upsmanship subtly, and then the result is just fucking awesome stuff all the time. Yeah. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, that would be good. And I think if anything, hopefully, as much as they might like each other, I hope there should be some competition between them, and I think we'll get better movies out of Nolan. but and increasingly better, even more better movies from Villeneuve if there's more of a sense of competition.
And look at like the new Hollywood situation too, because you got Spielberg and he's like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Well, I'm making this movie called Star Wars. He's like, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I made fucking I made fucking Close Encounters. Oh yeah? Well, I made fucking Return of the Jedi. Oh yeah? And then you just fucking sit there and they talk, and they're friends and on each other's sets and working together on stuff. But like you see that also like, with De Palma and Scorsese and Coppola, right? Like they're all coming at the same generation and they're all throwing fastballs at each other. And that's kind of what would be great now is if that was working like that. But like the problem is it's the mid-series feature has been gutted, right?
Do you think a Brit and a Frenchman can work together to make something great? Do you think that's possible, or is that like a sign of the apocalypse?
Well, he's Quebecois, so it could work. He's not. He's not technically, real French.
90%.
He's Quebecois. Yeah, 90%. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
he's just got enough English colonialism in him.
Yeah.
He can do it.
He's like the French are just like, don't touch Algeria.
Yeah.
So like basically, I that's kind of what I want to see with it, and I want to kind of dovetail this into our final discussion: is where does this rank in terms of Denis Villeneuve's work?
Oh man. I mean,
it's tough. It's a tough question.
Picking a favorite Denis Villeneuve film is like picking a favorite Rush song. It's impossible to just do because your tastes change all the time. It's hard to say. I have my favorite, and everything else is just amazing, and that's the way I look at it. Blade Runner is my favorite because I love Blade Runner. I love science fiction, but I mean, I can't say that Prisoners is better than Sicario. Or it's worse than Sicario. I can't say it because they're two completely different things, but at the same time, they have that unique Villeneuve spin on them, and they're just executed to perfection for what they are. This is up there. Like I said, his ability to kind of craft all these different plot points, it might be my favorite of his, where his craft is on full display as a storyteller, just because of the way he's able to piece everything together. Now, that doesn't take anything away from the fact that Arrival is an incredibly well-crafted story, or that Blade Runner isn't an immaculately well-told story, but I think it's just his craft and the way that he's able to piece everything together with Prisoners.
Yeah, there's no glitz in Prisoners.
It's a daunting task too. Like, it is daunting from a piecing everything together standpoint. Like, holy fuck, I got to connect all these dots in this intricate web of a thriller, and also just have this, just this plot as well. Just the plot is one thing, but then piecing everything together is a whole other endeavor.
For me, it's Blade Runner, then Sicario, and then Prisoners. I think Blade Runner, aside from all the, personally, I love sci-fi and that's one of my favorite movies and stories. But I think as a filmmaker, that is just like master's level of, like, you have got to be good to make this, not only with all the expectations of what it's going to be, of all the people who think why would you make Blade Runner, and like, it could just be a massive disaster, and the fact that he does. I don't think there's many filmmakers alive that could have done Blade Runner and actually pulled it off. A Blade Runner sequel. Yeah. And he still manages to do what he does with his characters, where you care about them, or you're invested in them, and all that, while pulling off this massive film. So that for me is up until maybe Dune. I don't know. We'll see. It is at the top, but then Sicario is kind of an evolution to me from Prisoners in terms of that sort of intense, building up intensity story and all that. And then Prisoners is a very, it's kind of, compared to these other films, it's bare bones, but when you don't have, like you said, all this glitz and glamour to work with, or all these other elements to work with, and that this is all the things you have to be able to make something that good out of very basic elements, says so much about him.
I also don't think like this is almost Incendies on steroids, because Incendies does very similar things as far as weaving a very careful web through the plot. And when it all kind of lines up, you're just like, holy fuck, in the same kind of way, you know? So this is like a natural ascension from Incendies. I think it's just more of a complicated thing to do just because there's more moving parts. But Incendies is overlooked because that's also another film of his that is just incredible.
And also there's like, we talked about this a long time ago in a podcast about like, there's kind of a, I can't watch foreign quote unquote films situation that I think takes away from Incendies, even though like it's actually really entertaining and really good.
Oh yeah.
It's like a really, really cool movie. And I think that this one, like, let's say aliens come down from another planet and our scientists realize that their only weakness is cinema. In order to destroy them, we require one of the world's most powerful directors to wage war against them. And you got to show your CV. I'm giving them this movie and Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Because this movie doesn't have any, like, you are just relying on storytelling.
Yes.
That's it. Like, that is what you are relying on. You are relying on your chops as a storyteller and your way to convey all the emotional complexities of what's going on. And I think that from that standpoint, there's very few directors who can work through this and make it interesting and, you know, really kind of provide the emotional depth and convey what's in the script, because the script was also very, very good. It was sought after, as I mentioned. I think that if you're trying to separate your, like, my favorite's probably like Sicario or like Arrival or something like that. But in terms of just like the film that shows his basic level ability to tell a fucking story, like, this is the one. Like, this is storytelling at its finest. He can't rely on anything else. And he's got
Sorry, I was going to say, like, we talk a lot about, you know, what's the best this of all time or what's the best that, and you hear those conversations a lot, at least online. Like, this for me is part of the big three of the thriller genre. It's Prisoners, Seven, and Parasite for me, as far as maybe three of the best thrillers I've ever seen, and this is on the list.
On that note, gentlemen, we're going to get going. Thanks so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun. Got to talk about Maggie Gyllenhaal's brother a bit. And we're going to be back at you soon. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.